Okay. Volume here seems to be fine. Okay, my volume seems to be okay as well. Good evening, everyone. So this is still Great Ace Attorney Adventures for the Nintendo Switch. First game of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles release, and this is the part 7, and we're still on episode 4, The Adventure of the Clouded Kokoro. We're just getting started with the trial portion of the episode. So before we go in, I should mention that I'm not feeling my best at the moment. I hurt my back again like I did a few weeks back. It's not as bad as last time. I think I feel okay enough, but I also didn't sleep very well last night. Nothing to do with my back. It was for other reasons. But I didn't sleep a lot, and then I went ahead and hurt my back again this afternoon. So we'll see how I feel. I think I should feel well enough that I should be able to stream. And well, we'll get as far as we can, and we'll see if I start feeling that this is really not going well. Well, I'll just have to postpone till tomorrow. But at the moment, I feel my back isn't hurting too much, and I'm feeling mostly okay. So let's go ahead and see how it goes. Your name and occupation, please. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard. Would you please summarize the events of the case for the court, Inspector? The victim is thought to be a young woman in her 20s by the name of Olive. Do you say Olive in English? I suppose you say Olive. Okay, Olive Green. I beg your pardon, Inspector. Thought to be? Yes, having been stabbed in the back by her attacker's knife, the victim fell unconscious. That was 3 days ago now, and she's been comatose ever since. What? So they don't even know who she is for sure? Comatose, I see. But her life is not in danger? Fortunately for the Eastern students, the charge will not be murder. Pray, elaborate on the details, Inspector. Sir, if I could ask everyone to look at this street map. As I mentioned, the incident took place 3 days ago at around 5 in the afternoon. It happened on the pavement running alongside Briar Road, a wide thoroughfare for horse-drawn vehicles. It had not long since stopped snowing as the victim, Miss Green, was walking down the street. Out of the blue, she was approached from behind by the accused and stabbed in the back, or so they say. Luckily, the young lady's life was spared, and she's currently being treated in one of the city's hospitals. But being unconscious as she is, we've been unable to take a statement from her, of course. This is the case file with everything we know about the victim so far. Okay. Thank you, Inspector. The court will accept the documents as evidence, if you please. The case file has been entered into the court record. What of the weapon that was used? Sir, I have that here. It was removed from the victim's back. Ouch. That big thing is starting to make me scared to walk down the street now. With a heavy blade like that, almost anybody would have been able to stab the poor woman. Even the scragged-looking Soseki-san, I suppose. A common or garden jackknife, I would say, rather nondescript. Thank you, Inspector. The court accepts the blade as evidence. Okay. Then I have to look at these more closely to make sure that nothing has been ignored about them. Now then, what do we know of the motive? Money or valuables, I presume? From what we can tell by looking at the woman's possessions, it seems like she's a poor student herself. Hard to imagine she would have had anything much worth pinching, my lord. I see. What in that case, are we looking at some deep-seated resentment toward the victim? I'm afraid I couldn't say. Apart from visiting the second-hand bookshops, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, doesn't appear to get out much. At this moment in time, we haven't been able to establish any sort of connection between him and the victim. He raises his arm like he's in a classroom or something. If theft and grievance had been ruled out as the motive, what reason could Mr. Natsume possibly have had for stabbing the young woman? Yet you arrested the man in spite of that in a totally unjustified and heavy-handed way. Oh. Pray forgive the discourtesy of flinging a freshly uncorked bottle into the public gallery. Could have hurt someone. But your words have soured its hallowed bouquet. For it is you, my learned friend, who is being heavy-handed here. What? Scotland Yard does not arrest people without good cause. That should be beyond question. Inspector Gregson, the prosecution calls for your formal testimony. Explain to the court precisely why the constabulary came to arrest the Nipponese student. Yes, sir. Because he was seen fleeing the scene of the crime, more than likely. No? I mean, they said as much, didn't they? There were witnesses who saw him running away. As I said, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the incident occurred, and there was an unusually light fog. Visibility... unusually light? Oh, okay. Visibility was reasonably good, and there was no one else about but the victim and the accused. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor. Oh, that's the first I've heard of that. Those being the number of old books he just bought. He was on his way home from a bookshop, it seems. It was just a matter of working out who the books belonged to, and we found the bloke to arrest him. Okay. Old books, you say? Yes, my lord, I have a photograph here of the scene of the crime taken immediately after the incident. It's a color picture, by the way. Ah, yes, I can clearly see the books to which you are referring. Or referring? How do you say? Referring. I will take that photographic print as evidence, please, Inspector. The crime scene photograph has been entered, blah blah blah, okay. Photograph of the scene taken by the policeman just after the incident occurred. The large knife can be seen thrust into the victim's back. Gonna have to compare to see whether or not it's actually the same... weapon. There seems to be a little doubt. Yeah. The knife is seen sort of at this angle, I guess, in the photograph. Yeah, I don't see any, anything relevant here. Okay, okay, let's see here. Young woman rendered unconscious following a stab wound to the back. Victim olive green, female, stout build, early 20s. Location pavement of Briar Road, east side. Reporting officer, Rolly Beat. Additional notes, her victim remains unconscious, her name was gleaned from her personal effects, other details are unknown. Apart from the single stab wound from the large knife, no other signs of injury were observed. The assailant was seen running away by the reporting officer and was successfully arrested the following day. Single stab wound from the large knife. And no other signs of injury were observed. That could become important later as a detail. Hold on a minute. Just thinking to myself. I wonder if the books on the scene of the crime are the same as those in that receipt. That might be worth pressing to learn the titles of the books. You Nipponese are a spineless breed, too cowardly to admit defeat. Denying everything despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Well, forgive me, Lord Van Zeeks, but the defendant is not denying everything as you put it. What are you doing, Mr. Sato? Do go on. Mr. Natsume has admitted to playing some part in the incident. Isn't that right, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, now you mention it. When we visited him in the prison yesterday, he did tell us what all happened. As I was walking along that accursed pavement, I could make out the sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman wearing a green overcoat she was, and just as I went to overtake her, she suddenly let out a little scream and collapsed onto the cold hard slabs of stone at my feet. I was terrified. I had to get away from there, so I ran as fast as my legs would carry me back to my accursed lodgings. A green overcoat? Well, that's exactly what the woman in that print is wearing. Oh my, a photographic print in full color. What will the world come up with next? Yeah, actually, I'm wondering exactly what time period this is, because I thought this was a bit anachronistic. The defendant has done nothing more than admit he fled the scene of a terrifying incident. That does not mean that he is guilty of the heinous crime of stabbing the woman in the back. There was nobody else there at the time, just the two of them, the victim and the accused. But without any witnesses, how do you know that? And if there were witnesses, then it was not just the two of them, right? In other words, there is nobody else who could possibly have stabbed the woman. A fact that the accused concedes. It seems this cross-examination could prove to be pivotal, counsel. Proceed, please. Yes, my lord. Nothing for it. I have to use this cross-examination to turn the tables here. It's our only chance. I'm gonna save before I maybe press on stuff that I'm not supposed to, considering the kind of penalties that you can get in this game from pressing on stuff that you're not supposed to. There was no one else about but the victim and the accused. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor. Yeah, I'd like to hear more about these books. The defendant apparently visits a second-hand bookshop on a daily basis. Yes, so I understand. A shop full of old English literature. I commend the accused on the lofty subject matter of his scholarly intention. The bloke's room was stacked floor to ceiling with those musty old books. Can you tell us more about the bookshop in question, please, Inspector? Well, if I must, I'll have to ask you to look at the street map again, I'm afraid. Okay. The closest second-hand bookshop to the accused's lodgings is this place here, Bourbon Books. A little place on the corner of Briar Road and Meerschaum Street. As it happens, the accused is currently living in lodgings on the other side of Briar Road at the opposite end. Which means it doesn't take a genius to work out the route he would have taken home. Something like this. The local map's information has been updated in the court record. Yes, I concur with your conclusion, Inspector. The defendant would certainly have passed the scene of the crime on his way home from that particular shop. Mr. Naruhodo, I think that what the Inspector just told us could turn out to be of vital importance. Yes, I agree. The most important point that the Inspector just made being... hold on a minute. Okay, it's Bourbon Books. The name of the shop, maybe. Hold on a minute. Yeah, this is not the... When was she killed? On the 17th? We don't have the date of the murder on this one. Because if the receipt is from the night when the incident occurred, We know that he didn't go to Bourbon Books, he went to your books. I'm gonna go on a hunch here and just say the bookshop's name. Inspector Gregson, may I ask you a favor? What? Would you kindly add the name of the bookshop to your formal testimony, please? And then I can present, hopefully, the receipt. I believe it may be of vital importance. Maybe. Oh, well, you know, I mean, yes! It could be a very important clue. Okay, very well. Not that I can see it being of any great significance, but please revise your testimony accordingly, Inspector. Yes, sir, my lord. Whatever you say. Could the man be any more sardonic? He was on his way home from Bourbon Books, a second-hand bookshop he apparently patronizes. Well, let's try. Okay, there we go. That seems to be working. If I could just stop you there, Inspector Gregson. What is it, Sunshine? I'm a busy man, you know. This is a receipt that we found in Mr. Natsume's room. It was issued on the day of the incident and details the purchase of 3 second-hand books. And you found that in the accused's room, did you? Yes, but the point is not where the receipt was found, but the name of the shop printed on it. Go on. This receipt was issued from a bookshop called Your Books. Your Books? Y-O-R-E, I presume? Yes, my lord. So Mr. Natsume did indeed purchase a number of books at a second-hand bookshop that day. However, the bookshop in question was not Bourbon Books. Eh? What? Inspector, do you know of this other bookshop? Yes, sir. Your Books is another second-hand bookshop not far from Bourbon Books. It's just that, well, it's such a small place, I didn't think the accused would have known about it. But in fact, that is the bookshop which the defendant visited on the day in question. And this receipt proves it. There's the date and time on it, and I think the 17th of February is the day that the murder took place, I think. I'm not 100% sure about it, but... Yes, for what difference it makes. Wherever the man purchased his musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis. I disagree. I mean, after all, I have the street map here, if that might be of help. Oh, yes, thank you. Have a look at this, please. If the defendant had been returned from Bourbon Books, then yes, he would almost certainly have passed the place where Miss Green was attacked. However, if we take into account the fact that he was actually... another bot. Yeah, great. If we take into account the fact that he was actually at another bookshop, Euro Books, it may very well turn out that he wouldn't have passed that location at all. Hi, RNG. Yeah, I am very sleepy. And not feeling too good either, but we'll see how it goes. Could that be true? My, it rather depends on where this other bookshop is, but I do declare it may be a possibility. Is that right, Mr. Lawyer, sir, what you just said? Absolutely, it absolutely could be right. Inspector Gregson, where is this Your Books establishment? Well, obviously we looked into that. It turns out that Your Books is just here on the next corner of Meerschaum Street going east. He said it's such a small shop, I wasn't sure he would have known about it, but on the map it looks bigger, if anything. No? Looks bigger to me, anyway. Street map of the local area showing locations that are relevant to the case. Okay, it's been updated. And there you have it, as you can clearly see now. Oh. My learned Nipponese friend is obviously in training to be a clown, the way he regales us with such witticisms. To your future career in the circus. Grr, you put that glass down now, or I'll put it down for you. I didn't think I needed to spell it out, but here we go. If the accused was coming home from Euro books instead of Bourbon books, there's no doubt they still would have passed the place where the victim was stabbed. Yeah, I sort of saw that coming, but well. Had to get started somewhere. Yes, thank you, Inspector. Allow me to reiterate for my learned, if somewhat slow, Nipponese friend. Oh. Wherever the man purchased this musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis. As I suspected, you can't fool me, and I don't suggest you try. What did I say? Hey, I've had enough of this now. Beg your pardon? Terribly sorry, but would you mind repeating that? Mr. Naruhodo, we mustn't give up. What do you mean? If the prosecution's assertion is correct, the members of the jury may very well decide that Mr. Natsume is guilty. She's absolutely right. We must consider the assertion just put forward by the prosecution very, very carefully. They claim Sasaki-san must have passed the location of the incident on his way home for your books. Let's measure it. Let's see. 15. 15. That's 32 total. Okay, something like 40 centimeters on my screen one way. And if I go the other way, that's 10. Plus 9, 18. Plus 15. 33. 37. Yeah, it's kind of longer the other way around, it would seem. Depends where the door of the shop is on Calabash Road, because it's actually very close. It's not that much longer. I'm gonna save, because I'm not sure if raising an objection here is the right course of action. It would perhaps be a bit longer, but not that much longer to make a huge difference anyway. The assertion just made by the prosecution is fundamentally flawed. Explain yourself, counsel. Yes, my lord. You can see what I mean on this map. When returning from Eurobooks to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume could have followed the route suggested by the prosecution. However, that isn't the only conceivable route to take between the two places. It's not massively longer. If the defendant used these streets, look what happens. He arrives back at his lodgings without passing the location where the victim was attacked. He did say, however, that as he was walking home, he saw the victim ahead of him, someone in a red coat or something like that, and that he saw her, he heard the little scream and saw her fall to the ground. So I mean, yeah, that theory, I guess, holds, if not for that part of the defendant's testimony. So I'm not sure, but let's try anyway. He arrives back at his lodgings without passing the location where the victim was attacked. Talking back to a clown is a fool's errand, of course. However, I feel compelled to point out that that route is what is commonly referred to as the long way around. But it's not that much longer. On a cold winter's night, why would any man choose to take a longer route home? Well, the answer is extremely simple, he wouldn't. In other words, the accused took the obvious route back to his lodgings and is the obvious perpetrator of this crime. But, aha, yes, I've got it. Yeah, let's ask Mr. Natsume which route he took. I have already informed the court of the accused's response to such questioning. He claims he has no recollection. That's right. As I said, the bloke seems to spend his time outside wandering aimlessly from A to B. That day was no exception. He says he doesn't remember where he was or which route he took home. I don't believe this! I thank you, my learned friend, and suggest that we do not waste any more of the court's time by wandering aimlessly around the subject. Pray, what say you insightful jurors? What say you, insightful jurors? Okay, I guess that's how it's supposed to be said. But even something I didn't get to read. They all seem pretty pissed. But even if that is the case, the defense still hold it. Okay. I agree with Lord Van Zieks wholeheartedly and in every way. Oh, what? I don't believe it. Does this mean we members of the jury are completely convinced now? Very well, in that case, I hereby call upon members of the jury to present your findings to the court. Is it because I raised an objection? Maybe it is because I raised an objection. Maybe I shouldn't have. It would appear the jury's leaning is unanimous. To the insightful members of the jury, I applaud your brave resolve. You serve Queen and country admirably. Mr. Naruhodo. No, not yet. This isn't over yet. I still have one last chance to sway the opinion of the jury. We're gonna do it again. I have to tip the balance of those scales the other way. I have to turn this around, somehow. Those are the eyes of Quarry, not yet willing to give up and die. So I presume you intend to wield your rights again in this trial? Rights of the defense written into antiquated British law that should have been buried long ago? Call it antiquated if you will, but it's the defense's prerogative to carry out a summation examination if it so chooses. Very well, counsel. In accordance with the letter of the law, we shall proceed with a summation examination. Are the members of the jury ready, Mr. Foreman? I get the feeling that even if I didn't raise an objection, the outcome may have been the same anyway. Of course we're ready. I'm all too familiar with that Nipponese whippersnapper and his honkus refusal to throw in his alley. Okay. Honkus, I don't know what that is. Very well then. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will each explain on what grounds you have determined the defendant to be guilty. Judicial findings. The jurors' contentions. For pity's sake, that little Nipponese oddity already admitted it himself, didn't he? No, he didn't. If he said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes, why, it can only have been the victim. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, not in winter. So the poor woman was attacked from behind, was she? How dreadful. That's not really a reason. I really don't care. Can't we just wrap this up now? I've got work to be doing. Euro books. Yes, nice shop that. But Bourbon books? No, not worth a visit. Why does he say that? Can you press them on those to hear more? With only minor exceptions, the reasons for finding the defendant guilty are all too clear. When the stabbing occurred, the only two people at the scene were the victim and the accused. And the accused himself has admitted to seeing the victim in her green overcoat sink to the ground before his eyes. Furthermore, we have heard from the inspector that the defendants then fled the scene. I must say I would have ample grounds to convict this man already. Oh dear, even the judge appears convinced of Mr. Natsume's guilt now. Why did he have to run away like that? And how are we supposed to believe in some phantom attacker that nobody could see? This is impossible. How can I possibly make a case for the defense? Mr. Naruhodo, this is no time for grumbling. If we want to force the trial to continue... Yes, I know. I have to turn the tide. I must make the jurors change their minds. Well, 4 of them at least. Exactly. We have no choice but to forge forward. You have the floor, counsel. Begin your summation examination. Yes, my lord. I just need to keep this trial going somehow. Whatever it takes. Come on, Ryunosuke. You can do it. Okay, let's save here, just in case. For pity's sake, that little Nipponese oddity already admitted it himself, didn't he? If he said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes, why, it can only have been the victim. Admitted to what? What do you think he admitted to himself? Excuse me, but... Aren't you... Yes, that's right, I was in the witness stand myself just 2 days ago. Yes, I had a feeling I knew your face, or the side of it anyway. If I remember correctly, you're a banker, aren't you? That's right, after the gold rush down under, I came back to London to work. Oh, so he's been in Australia? And it was all going swimmingly until you started fossicking around. Bruce Fairplay was a man of repute. Sorry? Don't think I've forgotten how you treated me the other day. You had me and that young hatcher pegged as criminals. Oh, well, you know, water under the bridge. To us, perhaps, but maybe not to him. Now, there's all sorts of rumors buzzing around, and the police have been badgering me non-stop. If I could turn back the clock... Well, anyway, I don't know about the hatter, but at least I'm in the clear now. And free to make up my own mind about who's guilty and who isn't. Thank goodness. Alright, maybe I might struggle to change this man's mind, given our awkward history. Why was he even chosen, I mean? Shouldn't he have been, like, how do you say in English that, revoked or something, or rejected? Like, you can't be a juror because of conflict of interest or something like that? Well, the law would have been different back then, I suppose. Perhaps. Oh dear, I wonder what's become of Mr. First now. I thought the third from the left actually resembled him a little. But I think it's not quite the same eyes. If he said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes, why, it can only have been the victim. Let's hear a bit more about that. You're right that at the time of the incident, the defendant admits to having seen someone wearing a green overcoat walking ahead of him. Well, quite, that's precisely the point. Clearly that someone wearing green was the victim. And clearly that funny little Nipponese man with the disturbing mustache is the culprit. But let us not forget, madam, the defendant vehemently denies attacking the woman. Why, of course he does. If he admits to stabbing her, his life is over. The man is obviously a liver-faced coward, honestly, claiming the woman simply collapsed before his eyes. But if that's a lie, as you're suggesting, do you not think he would have concocted something more credible? Oh, I really couldn't say. After all, you are foreign. Who's to say what goes through your funny little minds? I could tell you what's going through my funny little mind right now, but you wouldn't like it. I do declare the man has already made the admission. He himself has stated that there was nobody else around. Surely the conclusion is obvious. No one else could possibly have committed this awful crime. If no one else could have done it, the accused must be the man. Really, it couldn't be more simple. Your argument is compelling in its simplicity, I must admit. I don't see how I can argue against it. Oh my, you are too kind, my lord. That went well. For her. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, not in winter. But you can't deny that there are other routes Mr. Natsume could have taken back from Euro books. Oh yes, like you drew on the map, you mean. What was it? Calabash Road or something? Or Hogwash Road? I don't know. Precisely. But it seems to me that what counts is whether the little Japanese fellow actually went that way or not. Well, yes, that's true. And at the moment, there's no proof that shows he did, is there? Well, yes, that's true as well. As I understand it, the accused himself doesn't remember which way he went, does he? Well, yes, that's annoyingly true. Winter nights are dark and cold, so the way I see it, you'd want to get home as quickly as possible. Well, yes, why is all this true? So really, the only thing that makes sense is that he went home along Briar Road. I see no angle of attack so far. I'm supposed to be convincing you here. I have given it a lot of thought, you know. I didn't just make up my mind on a whim that he did it. I mean, if there was some logical reason why you might have gone to the Calabash Road way, it'd be different. I'd be happy to reconsider my position in that case. Honest, I would. A reason why Saseki-san might have taken the longer way home? A good reason. I don't imagine you'll be able to sway this young man's opinion without one. They seem to insist a lot on this guy, so I'm thinking that he might be a key to getting to changes of advice, changes of opinion. So the poor woman was attacked from behind, was she? How dreadful. Wait, hold on. Mata! Whatever is the matter, young man? You're the wife of Mr. Garrett, aren't you? The landlord who rents Mr. Natsume's room. The master's wife? Where do you get your ideas, sir? I'm the maid, you understand. Yeah, but even so, you know the accused, so there should be conflict of interest there as well. She's keeping up that charade. This is going to be awkward. Why didn't you mention this yesterday, that you'd been selected for the jury in this trial, I mean? Well, I was told not to mention it to anyone until the day of the trial, you see. It wasn't the letter I received. The instructions were very clear, so I'm afraid I had no choice. I see. Anyway, Mr. Natsume, the defendant takes lodging in your master's house, doesn't he? Yes, that's right. Although he's only been in a little over a week now. And in that time, surely you must have taken stock of this character. Wait a second. Didn't he say... He stated the reason why you moved, I think, no? I can't remember what the reason was, though. There was... Part of it was financial, I think. Didn't he mention something else, though? Because it was yesterday, I've already forgotten. In that time, surely you must have taken stock of his character. Does Mr. Natsume look like the kind of man who would commit a crime such as this? Oh my goodness me, yes, he's just a sort. Okay. This is going well. What? Spending all his time in that dark and dingy room sporting that unscrupulous mustache. The man never speaks, and don't get me started on those shifty eyes. All the neighbors are talking about him. I've heard them, you know. People think he must be building a bomb in there or something. Oh dear, poor Mr. Natsume. How could people say such things about him? He's just a harmless bookworm, nothing more. Well, you just called him a worm, so... Anyway, I'd better be careful about inviting this maid to speak. She's said enough damning things already. I really don't care. Can't we just wrap this up now? I've got work to be doing. A man's life is on the line here, sir. This will take as long as it takes. Don't get clever with me now, son. My life is on the line too, and so is my family's. Oh yeah? How so? The likes of you wouldn't understand, but a laborer like me can't afford to take time off. Because of that. If I don't work, I don't eat, and neither do the wife and kids. Oh, I see. That must be very hard. I go to the union every morning to find out what needs doing. If you're late and the work's taken, it's tough. This time of year, there is water and gas supply pipes bursting left, right, and center. They're after cheap labor to get the roads dug up to fix it. It's a hard slog from dawn till dusk, it is. I would imagine it being the case. Digging the frozen ground like that in the middle of the winter to repair a pipe, yeah. So you were out digging up the roads on the day of the incident as well, were you? That's right. Where? In fact, if I remember rightly, it was just around the corner from where it all happened. Ah! By that old bookshop it was. What? Another coincidence? That's right, Mearsham Street it was. Mearsham Street? On the map, Mr. Naruhodo, there are only 3 named streets. Juror number 5, I need you to add that information to your formal statement, please. What's the point in that? Can't we just get this business over with now? Please, sir, it's important. It would have taken another way if the road was dug up and maybe inaccessible or something. Fine, I'll do it then. On the day it happened, I was digging up Mearsham Street from dawn till dusk. Okay, these two. Those two statements are clearly at odds with one another. At odds, counsel, explain yourself. Please, don't point. It wasn't me, I swear. Hey, what? I just want to get this done and dusted. Well, juror number 3. Oh, me, sir? What do you mean? Juror number 5's words just now are extremely significant. Let's take a moment to consider the implications of what's been said on our map of the local area. On the day in question, Mr. Natsume visited this bookshop to purchase a number of second-hand books. And on the same day, we now know that there were works being carried out on Mearsham Street, making it impassable. Which means that the defendant's route home could not have taken him along Mearsham Street and down Briar Road. Oh, yes, of course. What do you think, sir? Well, yes, you can't argue with that, really, can you? We must have had a good 2 yards or more of the pavement up. Every gentleman and gentlewoman that came along had to turn back and go the other way. So the end conclusion is this. Yeah, and you didn't care to bring it up until now. I had to coax it out of you. So the only conclusion is this. The defendant must have taken the longer route back to his lodgings. Yes, I suppose he must have. I suppose that must be right, eh? Juror number 3, you said the following. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop. But we see now that he had no choice. Yes! My lord, Mr. Judge, sir, if I may. Yes. I don't think in all good conscience that I can say the man's guilty now. Oops, sorry. That was accidental. Yes, I'd like to see this trial continue so we can get to the bottom of what really happened. What about you, sir? Who, me? Well, alright then. If there's a hole in the prosecution's argument, it should be filled in. That's what I say. Okay, but we need 2 more. Need to listen to the old man. Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. That was wonderful. Well, we've managed to change a couple of minds at least. It strengthened our position somewhat. Yes, and it will prompt the other members of the jury to reconsider their stance as well. They'll be asking themselves if their current leanings are really right or not. Now, if we could just identify one more clue or discrepancy that would make them stop doubting Mr. Natsume. We might be able to tip the balance completely. Yes, that's exactly what we've got to do. Van Ziek is looking to bring this trial to an early conclusion. That's what we have to prevent, by whatever means we have at our disposal. Thank you, counsel. On with the summation examination, please. Okay. Okay, I want to hear more about that. What does he mean by that? I think he's gonna elaborate on that and maybe add more stuff to his testimony. Sorry. Fold it, you say? Fold what? No, what I said was hold it. What I wanted to ask was, do you visit Eurobooks often? I like the old books they have in there, yes. I enjoy reading them over a nice cup of old tea. Old tea and old books? That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're all talking about. And at what time did you visit Eurobooks on the day in question? Well, I was picking out books in there all afternoon, and it would have been just before 5 that I left. So you must have seen the defendant, then. That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're all talking about. Just before 5, you say, exactly when the victim was attacked. Are you sure about the time? He's wearing green. You could have seen him fall on the way back, no? You could have heard a little scream and seen this little man, who is also plump and short, fall to the ground in the snow, maybe slipping and dropping his books or whatever. Are you sure about the time? Oh yes, no mistake there. I remember it well. I'm not about to forget that day in a hurry. Not after the dreadful time I had. Aha! Yeah, there we go. I think this is what we're getting at. What do you mean? Well, I was walking down Calabash Road when I slipped on the ice and donked my head. It's always worse after the snow stopped falling. That's when it's most slippery. Knocked myself clean out, I did. I really thought my number was up. I think he did say that he saw someone unconscious on the ground and that's why he ran home. Wait a minute, let me get this straight. This happened on Calabash Road. That's right, I live in Cornpipe, you see. Heading down Calabash Road is the quickest way for me to get back from Eurobooks. Juror number 6, I must insist that you add that information to your formal statement. It may very well be extremely significant. Sorry, extremely sick? No, I'm quite alright now. Tournesol. You've changed 2 of the jurors' minds, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, just 2 more to go. Deliver the finishing blow now. Between the woman and him. The pretty-looking woman. The second from the left. Wish I knew how to do a suicidal takedown. I suppose words will have to suffice for now. Okay. Her. Now. Idiot! Those 2 statements clearly show a flaw in the juror's reasoning. A flaw? What are you talking about, counsel? Well, juror number 2, juror number 6. My, whatever do you mean, sir? I think perhaps the old man didn't hear you. Unbelievable. It's not like I was loud or anything. There is at least one fact of which we can be sure here. The bookshop receipt found in the defendant's room clearly indicates that on the day of the attack, he had been to Eurobooks and purchased a number of second-hand titles. He then returned home on foot. I think their argument after that may be the titles of the books found on site that led to the victim, maybe. That led to the defendant. That's how they identified him, I guess. And I think the receipt with the titles of the books may be relevant in that case. I mean, I could see it going that way, and I have to keep in mind to maybe present the receipt if that was the case. He had been to Eurobooks and purchased a number of second-hand titles. He then returned home on foot. But the man says he has no recollection of his return journey. That's correct. But what he does remember is seeing someone appear in front of him on the way. Someone in a green overcoat who suddenly collapsed on the pavement before his eyes. Yes, we are well aware of all this. The poor young woman who was stabbed, obviously. Idiot! Can we really be sure of that, madam? By whatever you mean. I'm sure you heard juror number 6's account of what happened to him that day. That same afternoon, there was somebody else apart from the victim, who was wearing a green overcoat and who fell over on the icy streets in the neighborhood. Oh my! My goodness, you mean... That's right, I'm referring, of course, To hard of hearing juror number 6. Are you really suggesting that the person in the green overcoat whom the defendant saw collapse in front of his eyes was the jolly old gentleman at the end of the bench here with me today? The time fits. That is entirely possible, yes. After all, the old man has a somewhat similar build to the victim. Well, look at that. My goodness me. Sorry, you need a pee? And crucially, we know precisely where the old man in the green overcoat fell. On Calabash Road. Therefore, if the person who Mr. Natsume saw collapsing in front of him was in fact juror number 6, it means the defendant must have taken the long route back to his lodgings, and we already know that he did. That's already been proven. So, and if that's true, then clearly the crime scene on Briar Road where the woman was stabbed was not on his way home. Oh my! Well, these two should change their minds. You idiot old man, if you hadn't been so daft as to be roaming about there, we'd have boxed this off hours ago. Yeah, no care for no care for who is the real culprit or anything, as long as this gets wrapped up quickly. And really, what were you thinking wearing such a befuddling coat? What did you say to me? Is it a crime for the elderly to walk the streets these days? Is it a crime to slip over on the ice? Is it a crime to keep up with the latest styles and wear a beautiful green overcoat, is it? Who said all it? My lord, I do hope it won't cause any inconvenience, but you'd like to change your leaning, I presume? I do declare that I would. I should like to call for a verdict of not guilty. Thank you. And I would too. What? Is it a crime to change your mind? Is it? Well... Okay. Whatever floats your boat as long as I get my not guilty verdict. Ow, my back. Well, that summation examination has concluded with a rather large shift in opinion. The what? A's? The eyes. Ah, yeah, eyes too. The nose for. So the nose have it. Not guilty, they say. Which means we no longer have a consensus among the members of the jury. The trial will continue. He's gonna break his glass again. It's chalice. Forgive the discourtesy. Or something. No. Could it seem churlish of me to drink from my hallowed chalice moments after raising an objection? Only to crush it in disgust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this was coming. Lord Van Zeeks. Lord Van Zeeks? It seems I must retract my earlier remark. What do you mean? I mistakenly credited these jurors with intelligence by describing them as insightful. Yet we have just witnessed them falling for a cheap trick performed by an Eastern entertainer. Eh? Whatever do you mean? Pardon me. I haven't tricked anyone. Everything I've said is the truth. Indeed, stalwart juror number 5 was undoubtedly repairing the road as he claims. I believe you said it was a good 2 yards of the pavement which you had excavated, sir. That's right, took me the whole day and they paid me a measly 2p for it. 2p? Not sure how you say that. Think I know what that means because I heard the word before in such a context, but I think it means barely enough to eat or something like that. I think that's what it means anyway. Well, let me look it up actually, come to think of it. A variant of 2p? Ah, okay, my bad then. Oh, okay. And in olden days, tuppence was a word for a little girl's vagina. Okay. Was once also a slang word for money in ye old England. Okay. Okay, well that was a bit weird. Hold on a minute. I want a clear definition of the word, not what it means in slang. Okay, it just means 2 pence. Okay, well. Fair enough. Ow, my back. Now my learned Nipponese friend, tell me. Do you have any notion of the distance that 2 yards represents? Well, if I'm honest, I don't have a clue, no. 2 yards is a little less than 2 meters. Less than 2 meters? That's not much at all. In other words, a distance readily vaulted by anyone of moderate vigor. Have you seen who we're talking about? He's a bookworm, not a sportsman or anything. Would you not agree, my stalwart friend? Me? Well, I can't say you're wrong, no. What? And did you perchance erect a sign to prevent pedestrians from passing the site of your works? I wouldn't dream of it. What a waste of time. No coaches would have had a hope of passing anyway, and we just turn any gentlefolk back when they come. Kids just jump right over us all the time. The accused is no gentleman as far as I can see. I have little doubt, however, that he could spring over a 2-yard trench in his meanderings around town. Not if he was carrying books, he wouldn't. Right? Is that true? Is it? The incontrovertible truth is that the books just purchased by the accused were found at the scene. There can be no doubt that on his way back to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume walked down Briar Road. Crushed in a single sentence. But are we sure they were his books, though? And old man. Cold man? You can talk. You say that around 5 o'clock on the day in question, you slipped and fell on Calabash Road. Pray, was there a suspicious-looking Nipponese behind you at the time? He passed out. How would he know? Oh, I can't say as I remember. You don't remember? How about a wager, my learned friend? You say it was this old man that the accused saw. But I would lay 1,000 to 1 against you being able to prove it. Indeed, I don't know how to prove it. Hordar, Lord Van Zeeks, explain yourself. My lord, if you had such a trenchant argument up your sleeve, why in the world did you not proffer it during the Summation Examination? I wanted to give this young foreign student the sightseeing experience he no doubt came for. I wanted him to see for himself how the opinion of the jury so readily... What? Swayed? Ah, yeah, okay. But my hospitality has its limits, and they have been reached, I feel. Oh, he threw the cape off. So my learned friend, today's sightseeing tour of London is now over. What are you talking about? My lord! The prosecution requests permission to call its next witnesses to the stand. Granted. Bailiff, bring forth the witnesses. Next witnesses? Could they be the 2 men we saw having an argument on the pavement the day before? The eccentric one and the one with a big chin and a big nose? Mr. Naruhodo, do you not remember? We've been told on several occasions that there were eyewitnesses to the incident. Again, that's a clear discrepancy that there were witnesses at all, if we're to believe that there was no one else on the scene. Yes, I remember. One of them being a Scotland Yard's policeman, no less. I'm afraid that's likely to be the prosecution's next witness. Alright, no matter who Van Zeeks brings to the stand as his witnesses, and no matter what they say, I believe in Soseki-san. I know is innocent. And I'll keep believing to the very end until this battle is over. Oh. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. Okay. His Bobby hat is all patched up or something? Constable Raleigh Beach, sir. Nothing to report on the street, sir. And I'm Mrs. Beat. Patricia is my name. I'm proud to say I'm this Youngtown hero's wife. He's the guy who signed the... Well, there was something signed by this guy somewhere. Yeah, reporting officer Raleigh or Raleigh? Raleigh, I guess it is. Beat. If there's a joke there, I don't get it. And Patricia Beat. Patricia Beat. I don't know. Can't tell. I'm proud to say I'm this Youngtown hero's wife. What's the story here? Well, in truth, we've not been married long. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary only the other day. That doesn't seem relevant. No, it was your husband I was asking about. He seems tired. Hardly surprising. Whilst being an honorable occupation, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world. Oh, really? I'm sure I've heard that before, actually. Indeed, apart from the rare days off, our gallant officers trudge some 20 miles a day, you know? They patrol boarding houses and pubs, collect taxes, survey the streets, check that meters are reading true. Meters? What is it? Parking meters? And they're responsible for keeping the streets clean and lighting and extinguishing our streetlights. There are a number of items on that list that don't sound much like policing duties at all. I wouldn't just be falling asleep on my feet, I'd have collapsed long ago. But it goes without saying that the policeman's primary duty is the apprehension of criminals. Even when he's off duty, a constable is expected to investigate and resolve any crimes on his beat. For the London, Bobby is a man of honor. And a man of slumber. On the day in question, this man and his wife were walking down Briar Road in the opposite direction, and they witnessed the incident as it occurred. Is that not correct, Mr. and Mrs. Beat? That's right, sir. Isn't it, Raleigh? Constable Raleigh Beat, sir. Nothing to report on the street, sir. If that's gonna be the extent of his testimony, then if there's nothing to report, that's good for me. No? What a great witness he's going to be. Very good. I'd like to hear your formal testimonies now, please. You will tell the court exactly what you saw on the afternoon of the incident. Yes, sir. I feel tired. Oh boy. What the witnesses saw. It was our wedding anniversary and Rolly was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor. Then the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at a nearby police box. It was definitely that Japanese man in the dock. Raleigh and I both saw him as clear as day. Well, this is extremely compelling testimony, I must say. Oh dear, this policeman and his wife are claiming to have positively identified Mr. Natsume at the scene. If their testimony is true, the alternative course of events that you established in the Summation Examination will be quashed. It's death knell, in fact, because that alternative was never viable in the first place. What an unfortunate bechancing. And on your wedding anniversary, too. Oh, I know. But I still managed to go out for the evening with my man. I thank the Lord for that. Gosh, the life of a London bubby sounds very hard indeed. Indeed. However, this cross-examination will be over in minutes. You may well have time to rest this afternoon. What do you mean by that? My learned friend, the witnesses saw the face of the man fleeing the scene. They are testifying under oath that it was without doubt the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume. But then, I have another theory. Yeah, I can't point at it? Yes, I can, so I can explain what I mean. So if they were, say, witnessing the crime from here, and the victim was sat there, the real culprit may have fled over that way, and the person they may have seen running away and that they identify as the defendant could have, just by coincidence, been coming down the road from that side and going home, right? I mean, that's a theory. They are testifying under oath that it was... Yeah, okay, we've already read that. And one of these witnesses is a policeman, no less, so you appreciate the gravity of the situation, I'm sure. Except that the man is so tired his wife has to do all the talking. Enough preamble. Counsel for the defense, commence the cross-examination, please. I should probably save. What the witnesses saw. Two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. Okay, that might be worth pressing. That too. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at the nearby police box. I'd like to know where that police box was as well. I don't see any relevance with this one. Or I may as well press everything. I mean, I just saved, so if I get penalized, I guess I can always go back. No time to change after work, you say? Are you also a member of the police, Mrs. Beat? Oh no, sadly not. It's a job for strapping young men only. Women, children, and the elderly can't even apply. Well, I think you can probably see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can't you? I think Rolly looks ever so handsome in his uniform. It suits you down the ground, doesn't it, darling? Well, just finished my beats. Pat and I were heading back to the station. I was actually planning on getting changed there. Is he talking in his sleep? This is creepy. But at least he added some valuable information to the testimony, though. Oh no, Rolly, I much prefer you in uniform. Sometimes I don't recognize you when I see you in plain clothes. Oh dear, that doesn't seem healthy. Kindly adhere to the point. You were going for a meal after you had finished your beat for the day, correct? That's right, sir. Yes, although I was fit to drop, to be honest, after spending the whole day on my feet. Yeah, can his testimony even be trusted then, if he was half asleep like he is now? But policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm the proud owner of this, I'll serve my city and my queen to the end. Metropolitan Police... warrant card? I think that's what's written on it. My warrant card, sir, prove that I'm a London copper. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it, as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. Sir, and for such a noble cause, I cover 20 miles every single day without fail and without grumble. Because I know that the plodding of my boots is all Londoners need to hear to feel safe and secure. So, fighting crime doesn't appear to come into it then. But sir, just on that one particular day I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. B puts up with a lot of With a lot being married to a bobby like me, I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care. Okay, they're cute, the two of us, at least. Oh, Pat, oh, Rolly. Oh, what a charming couple. Their young love is such a joy to behold. If a little over the top, perhaps. And then, kindly describe what happened next. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor, then the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at a nearby police box. It was definitely that Japanese man in the dock. Rolly and I both saw him as clear as day. Yeah, I forgot to press on more stuff. That's their entire testimony? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beat saw what they say they saw. Mr. Natsume running away from the scene on Briar Road that day. Yes, I feel the same. So if that's true, where does it leave us? The members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this testimony. Oh no, then what do we do? If Kazuma-sama were here, what are you trying to say? I think he would try to find a contradiction somewhere else within their testimony. What do you mean, somewhere else? Their statement about seeing Mr. Natsume is unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help. But if you could identify some other part of their testimony which appears to contradict the facts, you might be able to discredit them, to make the jury doubt if the pair's memory of the day is accurate. Oh, right. Put simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in these statements somewhere. If we don't, I'm afraid the trial may reach an early unfavorable conclusion. Yeah. Why do I always seem to be so up against it? It was our wedding anniversary. Okay, this we already pressed on. They appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. Two silhouettes. That's right, they were coming towards us, walking up Briar Road in the opposite direction. There was a rather plump figure followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man. That does sound exactly like the victim as pictured in this print and like Mr. Natsume. Yes, unfortunately it does. And you're certain that at that time there was nobody else nearby? Oh yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there are streetlights on Briar Road, you see. There was nobody else around at all, isn't that right, my darling? Yes, that's right, of course. There was a light fog on the ground. But Briar Road is dead straight and you can see a fairly long way down the pavement, and then there's the street lighting as well. I didn't see any other pedestrians. Before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer please, Mr. Beat. Are you quite sure of what you've just said? Yes, sir, as a copper who spends all day, every day, keeping watch on the streets, I'd swear to it, sir. I'm as sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. They're still maintaining there was no one else around other than the victim and the attacker. Well, they were there. It's starting to seem like that must be how it really happened. It's beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run. Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsume, did it? He fled the scene all too convincingly. Thank you. I believe we have a reasonably clear idea of the situation just before the incident now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed? All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor, then the other scattered something before running off. Mata! Scattered something? What do you mean by that? Oh, well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time, but then when we got closer, we realized what it was. Didn't we, darling? What? Yes, that's right. It was some old books. I see. Old books. Yes, sir, the culprit had dropped a number of them all around where the victim lay on the pavement. More information on them, please, as clearly pictured in this photographic print. That rotten Japanese man did that when he did the deed. Let's not forget that it remains to be established that the defendant was indeed the attacker. But we saw him, it was the man in the dock without question, sir. The mustache, the hunched back, the cat-like eyes, the taut mouth, the snub nose. Everything. Any more insults you want to throw in? That's right, you looked down at that poor defenseless woman with those terrifying, intense eyes, and then suddenly threw his books onto the pavement and ran away. I see, this is tough. They seem as though they're telling the truth here. May I remind the court that this unambiguous testimony comes from a policeman and his wife? That doesn't make them infallible. Now please continue. Yes, sir! We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at a nearby police box. Was it your husband who went to fetch help, or was it you? No, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I am the proud wife of one after all. Isn't that right, my darling? Well, yes, that's right. I asked Mrs. B to go. I was off duty by that point, but a Bobby is never truly off duty, of course, so I felt obliged to stay and guard the scene. Very laudable, Mr. Beat. Preserving the scene of a crime is a task of considerable importance. That's why I sent Patricia, you see. I told her where to find the right police box. Forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean exactly by the right police box? Depends on the crime's location, you see, as to who deals with it. Where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat. So I told Patricia the way to the police box for the beat the incident fell under so she could go and report it. I ran there as quickly as I could and asked for help from the Bobby on duty. There is nothing more potent than a young couple in love working together, you know? And thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved. The actions of two model citizens. Oh, please, you're making us blush, isn't he, darling? Is it gonna be a oh, Pat and oh, Rolly again? Yes, sir, what Patricia said, sir. No, not this time, okay. Let's move on, shall we? And this is the last one. But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face by the light of the gas street lamps, would you? We absolutely could. Us Londoners have exceptional eyesight, I'll have you know. Alright. The light from the street lamps was more than enough. And my husband already told you that the fog was only light, didn't he? Ah, yes, and what of the fog? We're famous for it across the globe, I believe, but it's an absolute menace to those of us who have to live with it, of course. Oh, it is! When it's thick, you can't even see the hand at the end of your own arm. Yes, alright, I take your point. Now, could you stop shaking your husband about? The constant fog makes our eyes very sharp, you see. That's why we can tell you for sure and certain that it was that little Japanese man we saw. Can't we, darling? What? Ah, yes. It was the accused and no mistake. The mustache, the hunched back, the cat-like eyes, the taut mouth, the snub nose. Unmistakable, sir. As far as this couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. It was Saseki-san they saw running away from the scene of the crime. Mr. Lawyer, sir, can I ask you something? Oh, yes, of course. What is it? Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we've told you, so... It seems like you don't believe our testimony, is that right? Is it? Well, out with it. What? No, oh no, it's really not that at all. My husband's a policeman, remember? And I know what I saw. I remember every last detail, everything like... Oh, I know, what about the books the man dropped? Ah, that's interesting. Would you add that to your testimony? I could tell you the names of every single one I could. Every single one. Uh-huh. And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is? That will do, Mrs. B. No, it won't do at all. That Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. Even if I decide to forgive him for insulting us, don't think for a minute that Rolly will. I really didn't mean to cause offense. Please put your husband's fist down. Perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony, Mrs. Beat. Might that appease you? Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things nicely. Wouldn't it, darling? Okay, and if they're not the titles of the books on the receipt, like I suspected that might be the case originally, then it can't have been the Japanese man that they saw. What are they? Yes, we know that there were books dropped at the scene of the crime, as you say. Those purchased by the accused at the nearby second-hand bookshop on the day in question. After I'd been to the police box for help, I decided to have a good look over the area for good measure. I'm a proud policeman's wife, after all. I did it for Rolly. And what was your husband doing at the time? Sleeping. Well, he was lying face down in the snow, getting some well-deserved rest. He works ever so hard, you know. Ever so hard, don't you, my darling? Interesting way of guarding the scene of the crime. Well, Mrs. Beat, seeing as you've regaled the court with tales of your powers of recollection, would you be so kind as to recount the titles of the books you observed at the scene? I'd be happy to. Now, are you all listening? There was the picture of Monsieur Somebody or Other, and What's It Yearnings. Those are not the title on the receipt, are they? Ah, okay, no, they are, it seems. But she incorrectly recollects them anyway. What's the picture of Monsieur Somebody or Other, and What's It Yearnings? Then there was a meal for someone, and the last one was definitely the Thingamies something. Wait, what? That's 4 books. I'm so tired. I was about to speak in French. there's one missing. The Thingamies something. Yeah, that one is missing then. You see? Yes, I see there are 1 or 2 holes in your memory. Oh, well, they were along those lines, I'm quite sure. There were indeed books found at the scene, but titles along those lines, as you put it. Well, what did I tell you? So I think it's very mean the way you've been implying that my testimony can't be trusted. Don't you agree, darling? Anyone who upsets my Patricia will have me to answer to. Terrifying. Yes, she really is. So that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony... okay, we've already been there, haven't we? I could present the thing. The receipt. Or the picture, I guess, of the scene of the crime, because there's one book that she speaks of that isn't at the scene. Put simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in these statements somewhere. Okay, let's save here, perhaps. Okay, it's working. So you're saying that there were 4 books. That's right, I remember all of them. The picture of Monsieur Somebody, What's It Yearnings, A Meal for Someone, and the Thingamies something. I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat, but there is a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours. Oh no, what flaw? Simply that at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4. What? This is a receipt from the bookshop where the defendant bought his books. Your books? Yes, and it details Miss Anatomis' purchases that day. But as you can see, only 3 books are listed. Only 3? But no, that can't be. I remember seeing them. There were 4 books, I tell you. 4 dirty old books. Oh, really? Have a good look at this photographic print of the scene of the crime. I think I could have presented the photographic print as well. As you can clearly see from this evidence as well, there are only 3 books. But I just don't believe it. I saw them there, I swear it, I saw them. No, madam, I'm afraid your powers of observation cannot be relied upon. Well, she could be right. It's just, where did that book go? That's all. Tired. No, madam, I'm afraid your powers of observation cannot be relied upon. So it cannot be denied that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. No! It's plainly evident that it is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned Nipponese friend. What? What cannot be denied is that these 2 witnesses saw the accused running from the scene, a fact that you know very well you have no hope of disproving. So you've striven to... Striven? Is that how you say it? You've striven to avert my attention from that by dint of some inconsequential discrepancies. Would that be fair? He sees right through me. But your plan has somewhat recoiled against you. What are you talking about? It's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. To the policeman's wife and her entirely accurate testimony in every respect. You see, the matter is not up for debate, as at the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were most definitely found. But what about the photographic print? It only shows 3 books. Quite right, only 3 can be seen in that print. That print? You mean to say you've been withholding evidence? Allow me to present another, one that shows the victim's hand. What was the 4th title she said? Does that make sense? Does it go back far enough? The Thingamy something. Yeah, I guess it could stand for the Lion's Pride. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess so. If Thingamy is substitute for something and something is substitute for something as well, it's the 4th book. As you will observe, the 4th book was hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso. No! Hordar, Hordar. There, you see? You see? Look at that. Look, look, look. Yes. It's just like I said, isn't it, my darling? Yes, sir. Patricia is always right, sir. Let us study the receipt from the books purchased by the accused on the day in question. Mrs. Bede, the titles once again, if you please. Oh, yes, of course. The pictures of Monsieur Somebody or Other. The picture of Monsieur Lecoq. What's it, Yearnings? Canterbury Yearnings. A meal for someone. A meal for Gaborio, in fact. As the court has just heard, the witness remembers the book titles flawlessly, save for a few minor details. Yeah, minor, I guess. Mrs. Bede's powers of recollection can only be described as exceptional. Did you hear that, Rolly? The gentleman paid me a compliment. Yes, sir. Flawless, sir. Patricia is flawless. But there are only 3 books on the receipt, and Mrs. Bede mentioned 4. There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly the fourth book is that which is shown in this photographic print. I'm sorry, Counsel, but does that not seem odd? Why should the fourth book be omitted from the receipt? It's not odd at all, my lord. If she's holding it, it was hers. Yeah, that's, inconvenient to say the least for my client. Where do I go from there? In other words, it belongs to the victim. The victim was holding her own book? I wonder, what became of that fourth book? Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers at Scotland Yard. I have it here as evidence. You will submit that at the aforementioned photographic print to the court, please, Counsel. Okay, so I can have a closer look at them. My pleasure, my lord. Okay, second photograph of the scene taken by a policeman just after the incident. It specifically shows the victim's hand. The fourth book has been entered into the court record. Okay, let me go through the court record now. Prosecution rests. Do we have a discrepancy, by the way, between these two pictures? Wait a minute, there's a... Is there a bite mark in the book? It looks weird, doesn't it? Right there, I mean. Looks like it was bitten by something. The heck? Ah, yes indeed. I know it's burned. Did it come from the... Yeah, because... Didn't he mention something? That Gideb... What was the name again? Of that guy? Gary Deb, yeah. Didn't he say something along those lines? That he had a book about a lion or something? And then there was a discussion with Sholmes that there was no influence between the topic of the book and the purchase of the lion statue or something like that. That came in the discussion yesterday, but I've a bit forgotten the details of that. Okay, there we go. Oh, look at this. The book has been badly burned. You're right. You'd never be able to read it in this state. Especially not the latter pages. What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently. A book recently damaged by fire. Why does that seem to raise a red flag with me? Ah, and that updated the piece of evidence, so I definitely had to look at it. The back cover is badly burned. Let me see. It's a book entitled The Lion's Pride. I'm afraid I don't know any English literature at all, so it wouldn't be something I've heard. Wait a minute. The Lion's Pride? That's strange. I think I have heard of a book by that name before, and very recently too. It's a title I recognize too, Mr. Naruhodo. The Lion's Pride. I can't find anything out of place. A thought just occurred to me. Don't they look alike a little? And if she had a book that came from their place... I don't know, they're both plump, but I guess, yeah, none of the two parents are blonde, so, yeah, maybe that's just, yeah, no, there's probably no link then. Okay. I have nothing further to add. What? You seem surprised, my learned friend, but your resistance until now has been in vain. Entertaining, yes, but futile. The spurious longer route to the accused lodgings that you tried to establish in your summation examination, and the attempted discrediting of the witness's powers of recollection in your cross-examination. Futile? I walked right into this, didn't I? You see, everything we've said is true. Isn't that right, my darling? Yes, Pat. Marry me, Pat. I think you already did. So perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their positions. Should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty? Or is the decision you have to make all too apparent already? You have heard all of the witnesses and seen all of the evidence. This trial has run its course. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid we are in a terribly precarious position. I know, but if I fight back in the wrong way now, I could very well just make matters worse. Think, Ryunosuke, think. What do you do now? I don't know. Or maybe it doesn't make any difference. Because the way things are going, I could see all the jurors changing their opinion again, and everything tilting more towards guilty. Think, Ryunosuke, think. What do I do now? Let's try. I mean, I just saved just in case. I'm not done yet. No, my learned friend, it's over. That last cross-examination was your final chance to establish a credible defense, and you failed. The die has been cast. There is no more room for debate. Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but... I can't think of what to say, me neither. If I may, Lord Van Zieks, it seems somewhat boorish to close down the debate at this point. Your insignificant little Eastern Isle must be a lawless hole indeed. For a lowly judicial assistant to have the audacity to intervene at a moment like this. Oh. I am, to my shame, still a very inexperienced lawyer. So you will have to forgive me, but I consider my assistant's advice essential and her opinions invaluable. Mr. Naruhodo. Hold on a minute. One of this land's great guiding principles is tolerance, so the court will hear you, madam. Go ahead, Mr. Sato, please. Very well. Pray, what insight can you give us? What have we all overlooked in this matter that you see that you see fit to pursue further? Well, the court has been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished. I see, and you believe that this new evidence warrants further examination, do you? Mr. Naruhodo, what do you think? It's just possible that this new evidence might be the decisive proof we've been waiting for. The judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings in the moment. And of course is sure to ask you to explain what the crucial piece of evidence is and why, so we must take this opportunity to examine the newly presented evidence as thoroughly as possible. I just did. There's no need, I just did. And it's already been updated, so I can present it as is, I think. Yes, I understand, and thank you, Mr. Sato. This is it. Susato-san has managed to win us one last chance here. Can't let it go to waste. The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord. Very well, the defense may present one further piece of evidence. Evidence that apparently offers a profound insight into this case, and has hitherto been overlooked. Is that how you pronounce that? Hitherto? Hold on, I'll listen to it on my phone. Ouch, my back. hold on. What was that? Louder, please. Hitherto. Okay. Hitherto. Okay. Oh yeah, I have to present it. Evidence that apparently offers, ouch, my back, a profound insight into this case and has hitherto been overlooked. The evidence in question is what we can see from the newly presented photographic print of the crime scene. The fourth book found in the victim's hand. We have already discussed the fourth book at length. Other than it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incident, no significance has been attached to it. Pursuing the matter further would be a flagrant waste of the court's time, as you well know. Yes, I'm afraid, counsel, I must concur with the prosecution on this matter. It's burnt! When I afforded you this opportunity, you led the court to believe that the evidence in question contained a hitherto undiscovered clue. So I must insist that you elaborate, counsel, or you will identify this clue at once. Do I make myself clear? Oh, yes, my lord. It's, Mr. Naruhodo. I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination of the evidence. Because they know that there is something inconsistent about it. More than likely. Which means you may very well be on the right track. Yes, I think you might be right. So, counsel, precisely where is this vital clue to this case, which this fourth book conceals? Kokura, here. I would ask the court to observe the back of the book in question. The back? What do you... Good gracious! It's been burnt to a crisp, so we have to ask ourselves, why was the victim clutching what is clearly an unreadable book? It is undeniably an extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing. Unnatural, you say, and what of it, my Nipponese friend? Were I to concede the point, if it bears no relation to the case, there is nothing to discuss. So should you wish to assert that this fire damage is some veiled clue as to what happened that day? Pray, do enlighten us all. What truth does this charred book hide? Where the book came from? Or who it belongs to? A charred book, there is just one possibility here, which I can't quite bring myself to rule out. It's an outside chance, certainly, but worth a try. Alright, I'll explain my theory. Don't keep us waiting any longer then, counsel. Explain this theory of yours. What are you suggesting that you can ascertain from the fire damage this sorry Thomas suffered? Its owner. That's the only thing out of all of these that I can be sure of. My lord, the burn on the back of this book reveals a startling truth about the book's owner. I beg your pardon? But we already know where the book belongs to. Actually, no, you don't. The victim was gripping it in her hand as she fell to the floor, after all. It's obviously hers. The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand has yet to be answered. Actually, could the knife have belonged to that guy from before? Oh. Can you stab someone with a knife that has the tip missing? I didn't notice that until now. Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo. Just at the tip, a small piece of the blade appears to be missing. You're right. Well spotted, Mr. Sato. I wonder what could have happened to it. Yes, you don't think could still be lodged in the victim, do you? Oh dear, I do hope not. That sounds terribly painful. Is that it? Yeah, looks like that's it, huh? I thought to myself, maybe this is a military knife specifically or something. That could have indicated that this belonged to that guy. But I guess not. The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand has yet to be answered. However, as to the questions of who the book really belongs to and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers. Good gracious, how can you possibly? Very well, I'll play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember, the members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry. Pardon me and my back, jeez. I tensed my muscles when I sneezed and that hurts. How do you pronounce that? Alright? Auri? Awry. Awry. Okay. But do remember, the members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry. Counsel, the defense's response here is very likely to influence the final outcome of this trial. So tell the court, who do you claim is the owner of this burnt book? The answer is that the book belongs to the couple who owns the house where the defendant has his lodgings. A certain Mr. and Mrs. Garideb, the landlords. And whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or some kind of fate at work, I don't know, but of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for jury duty in this courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Garideb herself. Oh my goodness, me? I think you must be mistaken, sir. I'm not Mr. Garideb's wife. I'm his maid. Things would be so much easier if you would just drop the pretense. Alright then, how about a simple question for you? Have you ever seen this book in Mr. Garideb's house? I would never presume to know all of the books he keeps, sir. This is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused's landlady, you say. You implicate this hard-working member of the public. You besmirched her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable. This is not mere conjecture. The defense happens to know that on the day in question, at almost exactly the same time as the victim was stabbed on the pavement below, another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor of Mr. and Mrs. Garideb's house. Good lord, what sort of incident, counsel? A fire, my lord. Afraid to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye, you know. The whole place filled with smoke. Couldn't see a bally thing. Didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. The bally furniture started going up as well. Worst of it is, I lost my favorite book called The Lion's Pride. The Lion's Pride? By Jove, the very same title that's the subject of this debate. Oh dear me. This is it risible or risible? My mind wants to go to risible because it would be closer to the French pronunciation of the exact same word. Risible. Yeah, okay. Okay, that makes sense that it would be somewhat close to how we would say it in French. This is risible. All you've told the court is that a book by the same name was involved in a fire, in which case it would be reasonable to assume that it was burnt to ashes. And entirely unreasonable to infer that it magically removed itself to the scene of the crime. Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was marital discord. Without going into details, it appears that Mrs. Garrideb was considerably enraged. Apparently, she continued to attack Mr. Garrideb even amid the flames. Oh, how awful! I can't even imagine being so horrid to the one you love. Can you, Rolly? Yeah, but you're still in your blissful first years of marriage, I guess. Absolutely not, sir. My Patricia would never raise a finger against me, sir. Had all my favorite old novels in that case. But as soon as the fire got hold of them, that was it. Whoosh, up in smoke. Then the wife started hurling things at me. There was I, back up against the window under heavy enemy fire. Incendiary books incoming 10 to the dozen. They were thrown out the window then. The man had his back up against the window, and he had burning books thrown at him? Goodness gracious, are you suggesting that the book was thrown through a window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime? No, a thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted to the very evening of the incident, and there is no report of the Garrideb's window pane being broken. That's quite true. We also saw no sign of broken glass when we visited the Garrideb household. But is it not conceivable that the window was open at the time in... Not even remotely. Let us not forget the season, and the chilling weather that accompanies it. No Londoner would ever leave a window open in the middle of winter. Ah! Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Does the defense postulate the scenario in all seriousness, counsel? Do you earnestly claim that the book found at the scene was a flaming projectile thrown by Mr. Garrideb's wife? I'm not so sure anymore. I mean, it would have been an incredible coincidence that the same book, also burned, would have found itself in the hand of the victim. So that's where it must have come from. And I can't think of any other way that it would have found its way to the streets other than through the window. So, I believe it's a possibility, my lord. Just remains to be proven. That's quite enough. Well, I hope that everyone can see you for what you are now, you little foreign trickster. You call yourself a lawyer, but you're just a coward. A mean coward. Really? Claiming that our little tiff set the whole neighborhood alight. Honestly, implying that I'm merely posing as a maid for appearance's sake. How could you? It's nothing to do with this beastly case. Not any of it. All you've done is sully our family's name. No, I assure you that was never my intention. Oh boy, she's gonna be against me for the rest of the trial if this keeps up. Dragging up an upstanding citizen's name through the mud simply to divert attention from your failing defense. I should box your ears, that's what I should do. It's certainly unforgivable. Well, she was already on the guilty thing anyway, so too right, here we go. How long have we sat here now listening to this Nipponese spouting out his fancy foreign theories? But think about it. At the end of the day, the only person who could possibly have stabbed the victim is that little hunchback with the mustache, and he ran away from the scene too. I do declare you're right. It's true. Yes, what did I tell you? Makes sense to me. Huh? Sorry? What's that? Well, it would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are once again in full agreement. What is your position, Lord Van Zeeks? The prosecution rests. In truth, my lord, I feel these have been unnecessarily protracted proceedings. But then one must always exercise patience in order to savor the best vintage. No, wait! The mystery of the fourth book still hasn't been If books are your predilection, my learned friend, study them on your own time. What? No, forgive the discourtesy this time. For the foot on the bench. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now state your individual decisions regarding the defendant's culpability for the court to hear. I bet we're bound for another, I keep forgetting the name of that procedure.
Yuzai!
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 Yuzai! Yuzai!
Here we go again. I'm gonna have to do it again. Thank you for that unambiguous response. That's twice now. It's over. Mr. Naruhodo, don't give up. Mr. Sato, have you forgotten? The battle isn't over yet. You're not suggesting. Of course, the defense has the right to another summation examination at this point. Yeah, I keep forgetting the name of this thing. You could still convince the jurors to change their minds. You have one more chance. My lord, the defense asks to exercise its right to a summation examination. You believe you still have tricks up your sleeve? I don't intend to trick anybody. I intend to uncover the truth. This is no time to be downcast. As long as there's a chance, I have to stay strong and determined. Ah, okay. We're at the end of another chapter, it would seem. Save complete. I have considered the defense counsel's request for a further summation examination of the jury, and I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. They call him the foreman? He's like the head of the jury, I guess. I think they used that word in the previous case as well. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. I can't argue with that, I'm afraid. If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider. Ah. Okay, I may have to use her then. For lack of a better word. Sorry, excuse me about that. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? Dearie me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. I was waiting for her to do it again, to look at her other cheek, the buoyancy of it. Nah, that's not bad. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. Tidy? Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. Okay. How is that relevant? Yes, considerably more tangible arguments from all members of the jury this time around, it seems. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find fault in the previous witness testimony. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. And moreover... How many chalices have you broken so far? No one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. What about the cop and his wife? The Bobby? Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. I fail to see how it can be argued any other way. That means I'm afraid that during the summation examination, It's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts. But how? What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman and how? Those two details are all you need provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And there I was thinking this might be hard. Well, if I think about it, I mean, let's admit for a second that a book was thrown out the window. Whether it was open or not, I mean, let's just assume for the sake of argument that it was open, for example. The victim turned around to pick up the burnt book that landed in the snow and wasn't burning anymore, I guess. And she threw a knife at her husband out the window, and it went to plunge itself in the victim, I guess, accidentally. But then again, it's missing the tip. I'm not quite sure about what's the reasoning there, though. And there I was thinking this might be hard. Mr. Naruhodo, you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends. No pressure then. That's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you are prepared, counsel. Oh yes, my lord. Alrighty. Alright, Ryunosuke. Focus your mind now. Ow, 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 ow. Clearly the key to this summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid, or should I say Mrs. Garadeb. We have a book that disappeared from the Garadeb's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found on the victim's hand. There must be a way to link the two. Yes, that's what we have to find. Using every technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes. Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Garadeb and how she reacts, even to the things other people say. Oh, I can... How do you say? Pursue? Even during that summation examination? These two guys are still behind. The defense is rebuttal. Okay, well, let's press. But as we now know, there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? There's every possibility that the 4th book in fact belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have a problem with. Sorry? Well, at the point the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Enjoying a fiery scrap with his wife or something, you said. That's not exactly how I put it, no. Well, anyway, the point is, the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when it happened. I think that's what you call a strong alibi. So it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves the Nipponese fellow. Honestly, I can't see what all this palaver is about. It's a done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I've nothing witty left to say. Not if the knife had been thrown out the window. She seems ready to change her mind if I can give her a good enough explanation. So you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my, such delight on your face, but I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I'm a very modern, metropolitan, and rational woman. That's great. If one reads the morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So why read them in the first place? You see? Modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking, wouldn't you say? And not at all extreme. I see it. An overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man has been implicated by overwhelmingly strong testimony. Oops, sorry. So despite 1 or 2 minor puzzlements, I do declare that the man is overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say? Overwhelmingly. But us modern gals are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know? So I'd be only too happy to consider an exciting new theory if you could come up with one. I'd be happy to do that too if only I could. Let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right. I'm glad you omitted rational there. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? But what about the possibility that the window was open? What about it? I mean, there was just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? The prosecutor fellow over there said it earlier, didn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, see? But you couldn't categorically state that the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. Then what's the point in even having windows, huh? Counsel, you will kindly refrain from childish bickering. Oh, I'm sorry. Somehow I need to show there's an undeniable possibility that the window was open. That's probably gonna come from the next lady. Because this young man isn't going to budge otherwise. But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? With flames of love, I'll have you know. There's really no such thing as a loving incendiary bomb. Well, he brought it upon himself. It's playing with fire to betray a fiery love. Isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Oh, well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Mrs. Garadeb. Never you mind that. The point is we were just having a jovial little dispute, nothing more. Stop hitting the poor guy next to you, and I won't have any more of these suggestions that it was anything whatsoever to do with this crime. Right, well, we'll see about that, but what about juror number 5? It doesn't seem to be turning a hair at Mrs. Garadeb's relentless onslaughts. It's almost as though he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tiny bit of trouble. You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future is at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said before. What? I told you already, I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some readies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning. You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about, you know. She can be fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. Situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, do you know, it's funny, but I can't quite remember. Sorry? It was too frightening, that's the thing. I must have blocked it out. Helpful. I wonder if Mr. Beats will ever be dragged into the Thames by a scarf. Don't even go there, Mr. Sato. There must be some way to jog his memory about this. I can't present stuff here, can I? No, okay. Jogging his memory. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry, what's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on top. It did. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not. It was an angel cake to celebrate my birthday, obviously. Seems that's a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruhodo. Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. Only I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but candles went flying all over the room. The furniture caught and everything went up. The whole place filled with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold. But how did you catch a cold from a fire? What a fiasco it was. The grandchildren, bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then, because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it. Aha! The windows. The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave. It did. Well, yeah, you would have to open the windows because the whole room would be filled with smoke otherwise, right? I caught a terrible cold from it. It put me in hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along, but something about this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. We need to demonstrate who apart from Mr. Natsume could have attacked the young woman on the street, as well as how he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yes, I don't necessarily need to find contradictions between their assertions, just a connection might do the trick. Alright, I'll see what I can do. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. Okay, well, now that I've listened to everyone... I'd like to pit what the old man said with someone else. These two? Yeah, you have to open windows to clear the smoke. There we go. That's the logical explanation. These two jurors' statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again, I told you it wasn't me. What? What's that you say? Speak up, lad, speak up. Juror number 3, do you see? Oh, me? See what, sir? Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you'd be mad not to open the... Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garadab household. And Mr. Garadab had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke. Sonna. Pursue. Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Garadab! Oh dearie me! What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply that I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court, so please, it's time to drop the pretense now. What is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? I beg your pardon? What are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if we did? Oh, alright then, yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which can't have been easy since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering. Even though your house was on fire? Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruhodo. You've managed to establish that the window was open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Garadab's formal statement. Now you mention it, yes, the window was open at the time. I'd clean forgotten, but it's true. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. The window could have been open when the woman was throwing books. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. They didn't change their... They didn't change their opinion from guilty. No. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna get penalized here. Okay. I've never had that kind of thing before where they don't... Yes, I pit them against one another, but that didn't change their opinion, so... Okay, well, maybe we ought to hear a bit more about it. The fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garadab told us he had been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. And now you come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it, you're right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man, I didn't remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on, as well you know. I really don't. I barely noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it. What is it, sir? What is it, juror number 5? You know something? I've remembered what it was, that memory I'd blocked out. It was listening to what this granny was saying, brought it all flooding back. Granny? Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garrett or the maid, I'll have you know. Come to think of it, she's not that old, I mean 38. I don't have the jurors in the other jurors, I should say, in the profiles. Ah, well, okay. Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garrett or the maid, I'll have you know. Okay, I already read that. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's so used to being hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I just got back home after work, like, put my hand in my pocket for the wages I'd just earned that day, and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. You haven't heard the half of it, boy. The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. She threw a knife. I could hardly get the words out, but I told her straight, I've lost a day's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blaze was whistling past my ear, stuck into the wall next to me it did, about an inch deep. No words, just terror. I could smell it then, you know, that god-awful stench of the Thames. I was sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When women lose their rag, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people is, well, it's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using a bow or the like. What? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Alright, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later, if I dare. Maybe I ought to listen a bit more to it, and maybe she'll react. Your wife really threw a kitchen knife at you? That's right, she was chopping meat with it. Had a tiny edge on it, I believe me. A tiny edge? Still, it's all memories, isn't it? It started with that smile she threw me when we were courting. And since then, the list of things she's thrown at me has grown along with our relationship. There was a cup, then a glass, then a pot, a kettle, a chair, a wardrobe, a cooker, a bathtub. Your wife must be even beefier than you. Or she became beefier over time. And things came to a head last week when she threw me right into the Thames. Still, she's not so bad when she's calmed down. She's a little sweetheart, really. I'm so happy for you. If you want to know what I think this whole idea of ladies first that we're so obsessed with this in this country was thought up by some clever lads who'd been tossed in the Thames a few too many times by their wives. That's a very interesting theory. What a terrible thought. On the face of it, this juror's statement just sounds like a really extreme anecdote. But I think it might turn out to be an extremely powerful weapon. A weapon I might be able to use to make the jurors accept an alternative explanation here. Okay. Maybe I can pit it against someone else's. These two. No? Yeah, there we go. Okay, that works. Those two statements clearly have a deeply significant connection. Good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? Explain, counsel, at once. Juror number 2, do you think perhaps that this could be one such novel alternative? Oh my, whatever do you mean? An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We've demonstrated that the fourth book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garrideb's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Garrideb household to the street below. Well, that's what I said earlier. I mean, it's going the way I thought it might. Hey, what's that now? After all, Mrs. Garrideb could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4? What are you insinuating now, you little beanpole? I'm beginning to think that ever since the true origins of this book came to light, perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened. Now you listen here, you Eastern Gala. What is that, Gala? As the foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its way out of the house. But what? What was it? Well, the knife? The knife? I'm really taking a big gamble here. That was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least, this warrants further investigation. Alright, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that found its way from the Garrideb household to the scene of the crime was... Could I... Juror number 4, Mrs. Garrideb. Oh, what now? I must apologize in advance for this. But I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before? Ah, good lord, counsel, what on earth are you doing? That's the weapon that was lodged into the victim's back, man. My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garrideb was hurling anything she could at her husband, who'd been backed up against a window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that. The book was found in the victim's grasp. Are you saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? No, I think actually the book landed on the ground. She bent over to try to pick it up, and she was stabbed in the back at that moment. It was an accident, really, but an unlikely accident, but an accident all the same and possible. Are you saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? The book? Nah. Nah, even my missus hasn't got a name like that. Yes, I admit, there are many details we don't yet understand, but that's the point. That's precisely why. We must not allow this trial to end, not right now. Oh my. Alright, Mrs. Garrideb, your answer please. Have you seen this knife before or not? She's capable of saying no. Oh, okay, yeah, she has. I don't know if this is gonna count as an admission. My lord, I wish to change my decision. I'm a woman of my word after all. Thank you, madam. Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but... Oh, even him? I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman? I'd have to agree. Not that I think the granny did it, mind. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. All together now, ladies and gents. But not the old man. Well, I mean, it's enough for now, but... We did it? Congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. So, as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided. And this trial will continue. Okay. Now then, Lord Van Zeeks, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? I think a chalice is going to break again. This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Like corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. Ah no, he threw it in the fire. But what follows is so repugnant, it's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zeeks, the defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond, but let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourselves better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Garrideb household runs a rather wide street, Briar Road. Which means that the distance from the Garrideb's house to the scene is some, yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards. That's around 14 meters. 14 meters? Oh, that's a little farther than I'd imagined. And as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having portentous significance, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book wantonly hurled by the lady of the house traveled some 15 yards to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. I didn't say that. I never said that. I didn't say neatly. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? No. It isn't. I never said it was. And did the jackknife follow a near identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? It fell to the floor, to the ground. She bent over to try to pick it up, and the knife landed on her back while she had her back turned to the windows as she was trying to pick it up. That's my theory. Did the jackknife follow a near identical... Yeah, blah, 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 blah. This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. Come on, give me a chance. Let me explain. There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Mr. Sato, serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense. Yes, go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea of fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning, and as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garrideb, must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Is that even allowed? Is that a thing? Saints alive! A cross-examination of a juror? Order! 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 Well, this is highly irregular. It is unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand. Well, it's maybe unprecedented for a member of the jury to have something to do with the murder. Conflict of interest, man. And unnecessary. Lord Van Zeeks. There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth in it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witnesses? Yes, sir. Constable Rolly Beat, reporting for duty, sir. Well, good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a moment on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they are so heroic, these London bubbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Rolly, my hero, you make me swoon. This is a bit too much. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request. Aww. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir! Constable Beats report. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb. Believe me, a London bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Garrideb house are top-hinged casements. What's that supposed to mean? Top-hinged casements? Like they're windows that open, like with the hinge at the top, so it flips upwards and outside, and maybe you keep it open with a pole or something. Yeah, so the window pane would have still been on in the way, and that would have made it impossible for the book to travel that distance. He seems well informed, though. Why is it that he knows that? He said before that this was not on his usual beat. How does he know that, then? Why would he have committed to memory such a detail, anyway? Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, but my trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. He fell asleep. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. He said the contrary before. Or she said, more like. She said that when she came back, he was asleep. Top-hinged casement windows? That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Ah, yes, I'm sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. Ahem. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. I'm sorry, but... What exactly is a top-hinged casement window? I think I know what that is. And you cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course, sorry, but I still have to know. I found it, Mr. Naruhodo. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's room. Alright, I'll try. Or is it the type that slides? So the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. Yeah, like that. Ah, yeah, okay, yeah, I see. But as it's a top-hinged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge, you see. That would have made it very difficult for the book to fly across the street and land on the other side, but... I was led to believe that this was a very plausible scenario, but now I'm not so sure anymore. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. It prevents its opening? This is all news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or a knife were to have been thrown to open the window through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight down to the pavement below. Yeah. I'm afraid that makes sense. No. You see the problem then? Good. Your education in Windows is complete. Yeah, I know how to use Windows now. Yay! There was never any possibility of either the book or the knife traveling 15 yards over the road. The fact remains that it seems to be their knife, otherwise she wouldn't have passed out like that, and it was their book. What we don't know is how it found its way there, but that remains to be explained, I guess. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we've counted already. That can't be! You see that, Rolly? The young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw how he crumbled before me. Oh, Rolly, you're so strong. Okay. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. Do I have to? My lord. Oh good, another desperate situation. Constable Beats report. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrett. Yeah, okay, hold on, let me save. Yeah, this is what I don't believe. That part I don't believe. Nothing to report. That's correct, sir. I had my eyes wide open the entire time. Never looked away for a second. No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. I can swear to that on the yard's honor, sir. Really, that seems a little strange. Beg your pardon, sir. Strange, sir. Seems altogether regular to me. This burnt copy of the Lion's Pride was originally in the Garrett household, so the question remains, how did it find its way into the hand of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Aha! Could it be a different copy, sir? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Does that seem likely to you? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? As we can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, that book was in the lady's hand from the moment we arrived at the scene. Is that so? There's something about this statement that's not sitting right with me. If it had been thrown through the window, they couldn't have seen it then. If it was already in their hand. The two mysteries of how that knife ended up in her bag and how that book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. I'm so sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. I had no right to speak out. Oh, what do you mean? I requested the cross-examination of Mrs. Garrett without consulting you, even if the judge did deny me. Oh, I see. Well, I agree with you. We do need testimony from Mrs. Garrett if we're ever going to get to the truth of this matter. Do you really think so? Well, think about it. No matter how far it is across the road or how that window opens, Mr. Garrett's book found its way to the scene of the crime somehow, didn't it? And then there was Mrs. Garrett's reaction to me showing her the knife. Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Her reaction is telling, to say the least. The woman's hiding something, I'm sure of it. Me too. You're right again. We need to use this cross-examination to uncover more clues. We'll get to the bottom of this one way or another, I swear. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrett. Believe me, a London Bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Garrett house are top-inch casements. Let's press here as well. Yes, you said that you went to a nearby police box to fetch another officer, is that right? That's right, yes. If it had been on Rolly's beat, I would have known exactly where I was going, of course. Don't feel bad, my love. You can't be expected to know the location of every police box on every beat. So Rolly told me the way. Only I sort of got a little lost on the way. You didn't say that before. That's new information. Patricia, my darling, that's why I love you. Your terrible sense of direction is bewitching to me. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. Oh, please. So I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes? But like I said, my Rolly was at the scene the whole time, making sure nothing was disturbed. I was off duty at the time, of course, but a true Bobby is never really off duty. Sa! Okay, that I already pressed on. Yeah, that I wonder. But according to my notes here, the sun had gone down already and it was dark. Oh, but Rolly and I were strolling along, gazing at the night sky and looking for our lucky star. Through the fog? Sorry? The star that will guide us to eternal happiness. How can they have seen anything if they were looking up at the stars? Can't it guide you to answer the question? If a flaming book had cut across the sky in front of us, it would have lit up like a shooting star. And if I'd seen a shooting star, I would have made a wish upon it. Let Rolly be an inspector, I would have said, 3 times at least. Of course, what with the smog and everything, we couldn't actually see any stars. In short, are you trying to say that neither a book nor a knife crossed the sky before you? Yes, sir, that is correct, sir. As sure as the night sky in London is starless, sir. It certainly seems like they're telling the truth. And then we saw the poor woman fall to the ground, so we ran straight over to help her. I guess I have to finish pressing on everything. Since the most obvious stuff to press did not yield any definitive answer. And the last one is a bit weird, I guess. The way he reacted to it, that seemed to be important. How can you say that for certain? A very good question, sir. And the answer is this. It has noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? Can't say I remember. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. It's what the job's all about. And that is why I can stand here today beside my long-suffering wife and tell you Bobby's good for his word. While rubbing my tired eyes admittedly. Sa! Oh, Rolly, you're so manly. Of course I am, my darling Patricia. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. No, none of this is what I meant. I meant, how can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb? I see, sir. You should have said so earlier, sir. Yes, well, so could you answer the question? That was a waste of time, then. Absolutely, sir. I will answer it to the fullest of my ability, sir. There is a surprising reason why Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. But before I get into that, sir, just one thing. Wait, is something good gonna come out of this? This is the only piece that I thought pressing would be completely useless. I'd very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the great British institution of Scotland Yard. So I hope you'll take back some tales of us London bobbies and how we uphold our guiding principles. Take back some tales of us? How we uphold our guiding principles? I wasn't planning on going back just yet. I've only just arrived here. So to that end, sir, I'd be happy to lend you my warrant card for your perusal. But I must warn you, you won't be able to get through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you. I'll try. What's that got to do with anything? Maybe something in the rules? Okay, I haven't pressed here, but I want to have a look at this. Item number 1, a policeman will strive to preserve the peace within his allotted beat. Item number 2, a patrolling officer is expected to walk 20 miles around his beat every day for the furtherance of community relations. Metropolitan Police Regulations. Item number 1, any crimes fall under the jurisdictions of the beat in which they are discovered. Yeah, so that was not in his jurisdiction anyway, so... When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. But yeah, I guess item number 1 was followed, and that's why the wife went to call the Bobby, whose jurisdiction that fell into. Is there anything in there I can use? A policeman will strive to preserve the peace within his allotted beat. Okay, well, let's press here. That way I would have pressed on everything. By which you mean they don't open fully, is that correct? Yes, sir. They're just there to allow a bit of air through the house, you see, so they're restricted as to how much they open. But wait a minute, there is something on the lower portion of the window as well, isn't there? There seems to be a second latch or something. And therefore anything thrown out of the window from inside the room would simply strike the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark the map. Here is the location where objects would have fallen. Yes, directly opposite the scene of the crime on the other side of the rather wide road. Would it have been so hard for somebody to mention this top-inch casement thing before? Well, I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How do you even know? Why would you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's house is furnished with? Oh, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday. What is it? Do you have something to add, Mrs. Beat? Sorry? You look, well, delighted. Is there some particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering, that's all. We really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course, I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. But we were just so lucky it didn't happen on Rolly's beat. It was so close, you see. Why did he help with the investigation if it was not on his beat? Yeah, that's not exactly by the book. I hadn't realized. Oh yes, that's Street Briar Road. That's the boundary between Rolly's beat and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? Constable Beat. Oh, yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with interviewing the occupants of the Garrett household yesterday. Their house is on my beat, you see, sir. Yeah. He didn't have to assist with initial investigations and help detectives. That was not up to him. That really was cutting it close then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Garrett household is on your beat, does that mean that the pavement next to it is as well? Outside Mr. Garrett's house? Yes, ma'am. The pavement on that side of the road is part of my beat. I see. I was unaware of that. Just think, if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of Briar Road, we would never have been able to go for that meal to celebrate our wedding anniversary. But you investigated anyway. But that's the life of a bobby, after all. Extraordinary people are bobbies, tirelessly working for the benefit of all Londoners. Do you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Rory for all his hard work. Don't you think so, my darling? With the stars in her eyes. With the starry eyes, I should say. That must be it, Pat, my love. That must be it. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Naruhodo. I'll take care of it immediately. The case file information has been updated in the court record. The pavement where the victim was found lies just outside Constable Beat's... Beat? The border of which runs down the middle of Briar Road. And now it's my turn, I think. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to present something somewhere. Can I ask you something? Please, Mr. Lawyer, sir? Okay, because I've pressed on everything. Oh, yes, of course, what is it? You're doubting us, aren't you? I can tell. What? I wasn't ready. I mean, what's she doing? Please, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make my testimony any less valuable. You might just see me as the wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting that I doubted you. No excuses, I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you? Yes, Mrs. Beat, I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you so desire. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife word counts for nothing, does he? That's not what I said, I never said that. Well, watch out, sir. I might let you get away with something like that, but my Rolly won't. Duly noted, Mrs. Beat. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say, I wonder? I know what I saw. My eyes never let me down. My sense of direction is a little off sometimes, though. Okay. Mrs. Beat, nobody is questioning what you've told us. I saw it, I did. That evening, I saw it clearly. That little Eastern man with the whiskers and the funny curved back slinking away from the scene. And I know what I didn't see as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying through the sky. All very clear. You also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction. Oh yes, well, that's a little embarrassing really. I'm always ending up at the wrong place when I've made arrangements to meet Rolly. He gets ever so cross. What is that? Constable Beat, is there a problem? No sir, no problem sir. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind, perhaps? Oh, well, in a way, sir. Yes, sir. I was just remembering that the same thing happened that evening is all. You mean Mrs. Beat lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, they already said that, so we already knew that. That's not new information. Well, you see, I sent her off to find the police box in the next beat over from mine, but she was gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. I thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone for a good 15. Oh, Rolly, you're such a tease. But the reason I was so long was because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding anniversary. Rolly is so romantic. He saved up for it with farthings and pennies he found in the gutter while doing his rounds. Yes, how romantic. I'd forgotten all about it till just now. Had you, my darling? Oh, yes. But that was just between us. No talking about it to anyone else, darling. You have to promise. Really? Oh. What was that all about? Constable Beat looked very obviously troubled during that exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insight, Mr. Naruhodo. But I'm quite sure of one thing. We have to ask Mrs. Beat about the bouquet. Geez, this cross-examination is taking forever. This bouquet you just mentioned, I'd like you to add details about it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I'd love to. Why is he so silent? Don't know what to make of it. What happened was I dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while. Okay. You mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. Oh, I was so upset. When we ran over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her back. I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Rolly gave me. It was in a dark spot where the street lights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice at first. And then you went to the police box to report it to the policeman whose beat it was on? Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see. That's when I spotted my bouquet again, but the funny thing was, when I went to pick it up, It was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need reminding, Mrs. B, the victim is not deceased. I was all flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me from the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably? That's right, silly me, I'd gone over to the wrong side of the street. Although I'm going to blame the bouquet this time, I can't think how it got there, I really can't. So the bouquet somehow moved from one side of the Briar Road to the opposite? If that happened to these things, to the bouquet, could the same thing have happened to the book and knife? Curious indeed, isn't it? But the worst of it is, I forgot to pick the bouquet up again when we left the scene. That beautiful rose Rolly bought me, with that change from the gutter I spent so long collecting. Or could the body have been moved? By bouquet, do you perhaps mean this sorry solitary road? Oh! Oh! Yes, yes, that's it! That's the bouquet Rolly bought me for our anniversary, with old bits of change he found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose. Tell us, Lord Van Zieks, where did you come by the flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garrideb household. In front of the Garrideb's house? Although it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be of no relevance to the case, since it was found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you, sir, thank you. Could I have it back now, please? So, my new theory is, the murder took place under their windows, of the Garridebs, I mean. So when she dropped it, it really was near the body. It was not the flowers that moved. It was the body itself. Maybe she wasn't dead. Maybe she crossed the street somehow. She crawled, or maybe she was still standing. I don't know. And she went to collapse on the other side. Could that be? No, I think for good measure, this rose should be added to the court record as evidence. The anniversary bouquet has been entered into the court record. A present for Patricia Beat from her husband Rolly. The shock of seeing the stabbed victim caused Mrs. Beat to drop the rose where she stood. Yeah, which is an important piece of information. It didn't move by itself, I think. But it's a symbol of our love. I want it back after the trial, do you hear me? I want it back! Good grief, rest assured that I shall do my very best not to forget Mrs. Beat. Yeah. Nothing to report, but that thing moved, according to your wife. Don't you think that's weird? You claim Constable Beat there was nothing to report in the 15 or so minutes you were guarding the scene, but that cannot be. What do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, Mrs. Beat, you explained to the court that when you arrived back at the scene of the crime with the policeman assigned to that beat, the bouquet you had dropped at the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby. Yes, on the opposite side of Briar Road to where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of that meager bouquet, if a single sorry bloom can be so described. No doubt it was blown in the wind across the street, back into the gutter where it belongs. Meager? But if that were the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to the fact? No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore to that on Scotland Yard's honor. But the bouquet belonged to me, it has nothing to do with the case. That's why Roddy didn't mention it, I'm sure. No, because sadly, it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way around. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there was Mr. Garrideb's book, who is where it shouldn't have been. Mr. Garrideb's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out of the window by his wife, would have struck the pane of the casement window and landed here on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in the victim's hand. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we've heard, Mrs. Beat's bouquet should have been dropped here at the scene of the crime on the east side of the street, but in fact, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in front of Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's house. There's no logical explanation for those things, unless somebody deliberately moved them. The flowers didn't move, in my opinion. The body did. Or the victim did, of her own accord, because she was not dead. If she died on the spot, yeah, that would have been another story. That wouldn't have been possible. But she's not dead, so... What are you trying to say? The way you're talking, it sounds like you think my Rolly has done something wrong. Don't you listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says. Wittering on about books and bouquets. Why should we care? It's nitpicking, that's what it is. Oh, good. Mrs. Garrideb's come round. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garrideb. But deliberately meddling with the scene of a crime is a criminal offense. It's called, tempering. Yeah, Mr. Naruhodo. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it, for a very subtle but compelling reason. Tampering? You've barely heard the term before. Tell us, my learned friend. Who would possibly have had cause to carry out such an elaborate deception? Yes, there is someone who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. Okay, I'm gonna save here, but if this is going where I think this is going, it must be the victim herself. All the evidence and all the testimony points to that one particular person. Counsel, I must demand that you substantiate this conjecture. Who are you saying is responsible for tampering with the scene of the crime? Is it or is it not? No. There's only one person who could have done this. Ah, okay. My bad. Do you intend to share your internal monologue, counsel? Sorry, my lord. I was just taking a moment to get things straight in my mind. Ah! I'm gonna get penalized for that moment of wasted court's time. You'll pay the price. Okay, well, let's read out then. I'd really like to get that out of the way, so that tomorrow I can start on something fresh, because I'd like to stop now. Yes, there is someone who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. All the evidence and all the testimony points to that one particular person. Her? No, okay, well, let's accuse him then. That seems to be the right thing. Obviously, there's only one person it could have been. Constable Rolly Beat, it was you! I don't think that's the case, though. What, a policeman? A member of Scotland Yard? What nonsense! Why would my Rolly do something like that? There's no one straighter than my husband. Nobody works more tirelessly for the people of London. Mrs. Beats, you said in your testimony that your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty. The 15 minutes that you were absent from the scene is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with it. You're making it up. It's all nonsense. It's all lies. What about the Chetney's man with the whiskers? I bet it was him. He did it. You said you saw him flee. If that was true, Constable Beat would have seen him do it. Oh. And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene. Alright, well... First, you make accusations about the landlord and his wife, and now you incriminate the policeman as well? But your accusations lack one very important thing. Proof? You claim the crime scene was tampered with. But there is only one reason anyone would commit such a reckless crime, to hide something. That's right, he's right. But my husband and I just happened to be there, that's all, so why would we have anything to hide? It doesn't make sense. You've offered no motive for this alleged tampering, and until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty threats. I think it's maybe something with not following the guidelines or something from the book that he gave me. He had a good reason. That's the key to this entire affair. Mr. Naruhodo, have you managed to solve this mystery? Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. If you are mistaken, I'm sure I need to point out that your reputation as a lawyer will be irrevocably damaged. With that stark warning in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive for this alleged tampering. Yes, my lord. Where the victim fell? Or did he move the body himself? Oh yeah, he could have moved the body himself so that he could go on that anniversary dinner with his wife or something. That would have been a valid reason. I didn't consider it that way until now, but come to think of it, where the victim fell to the ground. That is what this Bobby had to cover up at all costs. What? Where the victim fell? You mean where she was attacked? What are you talking about? We told you at the very start, didn't we? On the pavement of Briar Road. We saw it happen, remember? No. It was right here, as if anyone didn't already know. That's certainly what everybody has been led to believe. But in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all. What? What? He didn't see the bouquet, so he didn't think of moving it. I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, counsel. If that's your assertion, then the court is dying to know my Nipponese friend. Why? Do you want to know why? Where are you proposing that the crime actually took place that evening? On this side of the road. But that's on the opposite side of the road? I don't understand. Because if the crime had happened on the other side of the road, that was not on his beat, and then he could go with her. That was not the Lord's blessing or something like they said before, that it happened on that side of the road. Actually, it happened on the other side. It was his own blessing for his wife, more like. On the evening in question, Mr. Garrideb's book fell directly down from the open window above. And your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, never moved at all. What did move was the scene of the crime itself. Good gracious! I can explain why. Perhaps you haven't been listening to the ample testimony the court has heard. But these witnesses both saw the moment the attack took place. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. There was a typical London fog on the ground. When you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid, that was actually on the west side of Briar Road. No, that's not true. It can't have been. Constable Beats then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. And during the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in this print. The victim herself, the 4 books. He moved everything, in fact, to the pavement on the east side of Briar Road. Extraordinary. But the constable overlooked one thing. The bouquet. What did he overlook? If it was in the dark, he wouldn't have seen it. The bouquet, I presume. Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Lord Van Ziek said it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. Yes, it couldn't be seen in the dark, obviously. Which is why it was only the bouquet that was found in its original position on the pavement on the west side of Briar Road. And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond? Constable Rolly Beat. Do you want me to tell you why you did it? Well, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important?
Oh, Rolly, it isn't true, is it? What that lawyer said is all lies, isn't it? I know it is, because you're the most upstanding, righteous man I know.
I had a dream, a terrible dream. All the things I did that night, everything come out, everything exposed. Only it seems it wasn't a dream at all. Good golly! Good golly, Miss Molly. Hordar. What on earth is the meaning of all this?
Oh, Rolly, why? Why would you do something like this? Moving a corpse is a criminal offense, isn't it?
Wishing the victim dead should be one too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London town. He wanted an evening with his wife. I can't say, sir. What? I really am ever so sorry about all this. For damaging the Yard's reputation. For everything. Want me to shed light on the whys? I have a possible explanation. Yeah, there we go. Let me tell you. For why, on that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. So that it would have been on a different jurisdiction. I can't think of one reason. What? How could you possibly know? You, a foreigner, presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman. And yet, Lord Van Zeeks, it is this foreigner who has uncovered the startling truth of the matter thus far. Huh? Take that. I believe it would be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary young lawyer's theory. Counsel for the defense, if you please. Yes, my lord. Now then, I think you had better show us some evidence. The little blue book. At once, my lord. England, Japan, it makes no difference where you come from. Human emotions are the same. And I think I have a fairly good idea of the feelings behind this man's actions. What gives away the motive for Constable Beat's unthinkable actions? Okay, I can't present his wife, so it has to be that. I realize that I'm a foreigner on this land. Wait, hold on. If they ask me which part exactly I have to point at. So item 2. Yeah, item 2 on page 2. Metropolitan Police Regulations. Okay. I realize that I'm a foreigner in this land and I have only just arrived from Japan, which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is completely new to me. I have learned that, though honorable, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world, for example. Keeping the peace, looking after the citizens on his beat in all kinds of ways. There's no doubt that the young bobby is charged with a great deal to do each day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. Special? How? On account of this bouquet, my lord.
Oh yes, it was our very first wedding anniversary.
Constable Beat had worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift for his wife, and was so looking forward to taking her out for a celebratory meal. When he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. On that side of the road, more importantly. When he saw that shadowy figure through the fog collapse on the pavement ahead of them, what must have gone through the man's mind? But sir, just on that one particular day I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat puts up with a lot being married to a bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care. This is the warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend to me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says, when a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Aha! Constable Beat. Is that or is that not the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day? Yes. Everything you said, it's alright. So that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat.
Oh,
Exactly. to summarize, the incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Good gracious, Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you have done? And now, the knife and the book can have fallen off the window. It was the first time since I became a copper that I'd ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. The criminal could still be lurking somewhere. As we ran over to the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We've got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then it dawned on me. I realized where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. When a crime is discovered on his beat, policemen must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Why here? Why did this have to happen here? And why tonight, of all nights? Why? It's a copper's job to guard the scene of the crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police book and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then when I opened my mouth to speak. It just came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my own mouth. This is the next beat to mine, Pat. So you'll have to go to the police box that covers it. Turn right along Mearsham Street and then... And there we go. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, Constable. I just wanted just that one night to take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, Rolly. Just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening of celebration would be ruined. And so you decided to move the entire crime scene outside your jurisdiction, just across the street to the east pavement of Briar Road, which falls under the neighboring beat's care. You see, I thought, well, I was sure the victim was dead, you see. I beg your pardon? Oh, of course he did. Otherwise my Rolly would never have left the poor woman on the freezing cold pavement. Ah, I see your meaning now. But God got me back for my sins, didn't he? That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. Oh no, Rolly, that was all my fault. I should never have dropped it in such a dark place. I'm so sorry, Rolly. And can you tell us, Constable, how many books did you move from the one side of the road to the other in total? 4 it was, yes sir. Definitely, 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Natsume, and the 4th being the one that fell from the window upstairs in the Garrett household, of course. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? When all the others were scattered haphazardly around, I mean. Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. How you found it? What do you mean? When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So, when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. For all we know, it fell on her head or something. You sure it was this book, The Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding? Oh, yes, sir. No doubt about it, sir. Interesting. The 4th book's information has been updated in the court record. We're done with these guys, no? I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you know. You see? What did he say? You know? You see? You see. Okay. There were only the 2 people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However, which way you looked at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who'd done it. I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it all over the road would make a jot of difference. I suppose this is it for me now. I've had it. Well, I feel sorry for him a little, but, that changes a lot of things, my lord. Yes, Lord Van Zeeks? I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw.
Yes, sir. Mr. Prosecutor, sir, what will become of my Rolly? What will happen to him?
For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course.
Please, don't punish my husband. This was all my fault. It's because I'm always moaning at him for coming home late.
Leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired.
Alright then, my love.
One last thing, Constable. Sir, let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you.
Yes, sir.
Carve that lesson in your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime.
Never again, sir. You mean to say...
Leave. Now, this trial is not yet over.
Sir!
That seems like a good spot to pause. Alright, yeah, that seems to be a good spot to stop for the night. My back is still hurting me. We'll see how I can sleep, how I manage to sleep tonight. If I feel okay-ish like I did tonight, then I feel like I should be able to stream tomorrow night. I don't think I should have to cancel anything. We'll see how it goes. I'm eager to see this case through to the end, and this game as well. I'm very excited about playing more of it, so we'll probably be here tomorrow night, and we'll probably be continuing. So thanks for watching. I'll be off now, be spending a bit of time with the family. Trying to rest my back also. Hopefully tomorrow it already starts feeling better. It's not as painful as it was last time I had problems, so with any luck, I recover even faster than I did last night. But still weird that it keeps happening though. I wonder what that is. Anyway, take care of yourselves, people. See you next time, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.